Chapter 1981. The three of them left through the back door and went to the restaurant to eat. Everyone in the Heavenly Pill building was busy, and everything seemed to be in order. After they left, Ji Shui, Immortal Lord, also came to the Heavenly Pill building. He had smelled the medicinal fragrance since last night and came here early in the morning. Just earlier, when Feng Jiu was fighting with the old man at the peak of the Sage Immortal, he was watching from a corner not far away. It was only when he saw it with his own eyes that he believed that such a young woman actually had such outstanding strength and cultivation. But speaking of which, how could a woman who could catch the eye of Xianyuan Mose be an ordinary woman? After walking into the Heavenly Pill building, he was even more surprised when he saw the pills placed inside. He really did not expect that the pills here were all so top-notch. These pills and medicines were really life-saving treasures at a critical moment. Ji Shui, Immortal Lord, who was dressed in gray, walked inside. He restrained his cultivation and looked like an ordinary old man. However, he was different from ordinary old men. His hair and beard were all white, and he looked a bit like an immortal. After looking around on the first floor, he went up to the second floor to buy pills after registering. After Ji Shui, Immortal Lord, went up to the second floor, Lung Hua and Du Fan looked at the information on the registration form and could not help but be slightly surprised. Ji Shui, Immortal Lord? Isn't that the master of the Yama Lord? The two of them lowered their voices and spoke. They knew about Ji Shui, Immortal Lord. He lived in the Ling residence next to the Feng residence and was the master of the Yama Lord. This time, the Yama Lord wanted to leave because his master wanted him to go out with him. However, the master had seen Ji Shui, Immortal Lord, before, but they had not seen him and could not recognize him. Hasn't Hui Lang been following us recently? If it's him, Hui Lang should be nearby. As Lung Hua spoke, he looked around and saw a familiar figure resting in the corner of the first floor. The two of them walked over and arrived in front of him. Lung Hua called out, "Hui Lang, why are you here?" "I followed the immortal monarch here. He's walking around inside while I rest here." Hui Lang said weakly, "Following the immortal monarch is so boring. Why did this job fall on me?" Hearing this, Du Fan and Lung Hua looked at each other and asked at the same time, "The still water immortal monarch you speak of is that gray-clothed old man? The one with a white beard?" "Yes. What's wrong?" Hui Lang asked. He stood up and asked in a low voice, "Did he make trouble for you?" The two of them didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Du Fan smiled and said, "How could that be? We saw him go up just now. If it's really him, we can entertain him. After all, he was the master of the Yama Lord. Naturally, they couldn't treat him like an ordinary person. How about this? I'll go up and take a look." Lung Hua said warmly, then turned and walked up to the second floor. Seeing this, Hui Lang moved closer to Du Fan. "Du Fan, are the ghost doctor and my master in the attic? Can I go up for a moment?" He had been squatting in the corner with the still water immortal monarch and had seen the ghost doctor make her move. If he didn't have to follow the still water immortal monarch, he would have rushed up. "There's no use going up now. They're not in the attic." Du Fan said with a smile and patted him on the shoulder. "Whatever your master tells you to do, just do it obediently." With that, he turned and left. Chapter 1982. On the opening day of the Heavenly Pill Dispensary, the entire Hundred River City was in an uproar. It could be said that in one night, the streets of the West City, which were originally deserted, had become the liveliest place. People were scrambling to rent the 2 rows of shops. All kinds of stalls were set up in the streets and alleys. Even the wall that was originally blocking the inner street was opened up to allow people to walk around. It could be said that the Heavenly Pill Dispensary not only changed the desolation of the West City, but also brought prosperity to the area. Feng Jiu, Xianyuan Mose, and Mo Chan went to the restaurant to enjoy the scenery after dinner. Not only could they go boating on the lake, but they could also sit in the bamboo forest pavilion and drink tea while playing the zither. It could be said to be an extremely quiet and elegant place. The three of them drank tea and chatted by the lake until the sky gradually darkened. Mo Chan got up and left, while Xianyuan Mose and Feng Jiu returned to the Heavenly Pill Dispensary. "Master, the old man has woken up. Lung Hua reported as soon as they entered the heavenly pill dispensary. Feng Jiu nodded and looked at Xinyuan Mose. Do you want to rest in the attic and wait for me? Okay. Xinyuan Mose nodded and walked up to the attic. Feng Jiu brought Lung Hua to the side room in the backyard. Fan Lin was taking care of the old man inside. When he saw her, he stood up and said, Master, he's awake. Did you feed him the medicine? Feng Jiu asked as she walked to the bed in the inner room. She watched as the old man on the bed slowly opened his eyes and looked at her. Grandpa Tan. Feng Jiu smiled and looked at the old man. She saw the astonishment in his eyes. I didn't expect to meet you again. It's you? The old man obviously recognized her. However, he didn't expect that the young man from back then would become a woman. So, she was a woman disguised as a man? It's me, Feng Jiu. She smiled and sat on the chair beside the bed. She looked at him. How do you feel? Are you feeling better? As she spoke, she naturally reached out her hand to feel his pulse and check the condition of his body. So it was you who saved me, he murmured. He finally understood why he, who should have died, was still alive. So it was her who had saved him. However, if she had saved him, then wouldn't the people who were chasing after him know? I can't stay here. He struggled to get up, but Feng Jiu held him down. You don't have to worry. You're very safe here. Those people can't hurt you. Feng Jiu said, I spent a lot of effort to save you. Your injuries haven't healed yet, so you can't get out of bed and move around. But don't worry. It doesn't matter if he stays. She smiled and asked Fan Lin, Did you let Grandpa Tan drink the medicine? Not yet. As Fan Lin spoke, he took out the bottle of medicine and handed it to her. At the same time, he helped the old man up and leaned against the bed. Feng Jiu took the bottle, opened the cap, and handed it to him. Grandpa Tan, drink this. It's good for your body. Looking at the translucent medicine, Grandpa Tan was stunned. Then he shook his head. This kind of thing is too expensive. I can't accept it. Just by looking at the medicine, he knew that it was expensive. How could he drink something like this? She didn't know how hard it was for her to get such a precious thing. How could she waste it on him? Chapter 1983. The corner of Fan Lin's mouth twitched when he heard this. How could anything refined by Master be worthless? Any random item was worth a lot of money, not to mention the potions that the Masters kept with them as a precaution. How could the preciousness of these potions be measured by money? I wonder who this old man is. How could Master call him Grandpa Tan? He even took out such precious pills and medicine to treat him. You refined it. Elder Tan was slightly startled. He looked at the medicine in the bottle with some surprise. She actually refined something like this? Although he couldn't tell what grade it was, he could tell from the color that it was definitely not an ordinary medicine. At least, he had never come into contact with medicine of this grade. Drink it first. Feng Jiu handed it to him and motioned for him to drink it first. Seeing this, Elder Tan didn't say anything else. He wanted to drink it first. His body was seriously injured, but he didn't know how she saved him. What did she use to save him? Why did he feel that the injuries in his body had healed a little when he woke up? Seeing that Elder Tan drank it, Feng Jiu smiled. Grandpa Tan, if you have any problems here, look for him. His name is Fan Lin. He has some understanding of medicine. He'll help you nurse your body back to health. As for those people you were worried about, you don't have to worry anymore. They already came by while you were unconscious. You can rest assured and nurse your body back to health. Those people came by, then you. Elder Tan was shocked. He couldn't help but size up Feng Jiu, but saw that she wasn't injured. I'm not injured, but those people ran away with their tails between their legs. She supported her chin with one hand and smiled. She paused and said, Oh, right, the old man who led them is dead. That old man was struck by her raging flame fist right in the heart. Other than the strength of the fist, the spiritual energy aura, along with the scorching heat of the flames, had also entered the heart meridian. As a result, with just one punch, that old man was on the verge of death, and in the end, he died. Elder Tan's eyes widened in shock. He couldn't believe it. The old man who led them was dead? The other party was an expert at the peak of the sage immortal realm. How could she kill such an expert? All right, Grandpa Tan, are you hungry? How about this? I'll get someone to cook some medicinal porridge for you. First, it can nourish your body. Second, it tastes good. She then looked at Fan Lin and asked, "Do you know how to make medicinal porridge?" "Don't worry, master. This subordinate knows medicinal cuisine. I'll have someone prepare it and bring it over," Fan Lin said as he respectfully retreated. "Who exactly are you?" Elder Tan couldn't help but ask. He looked at Fengjiu with a complicated and probing look in his eyes. "My name is Fengjiu, and she's still a woman. As for the rest," she smiled, "it's just that she's more capable, has more status, and has more subordinates." Elder Tan moved his lips, but could not say anything. That was not all. Wasn't the treasure trove pavilion destroyed by her? With such a frightening ability, he had really been blind in the past. He had actually treated him as an ordinary herb gatherer. Chapter 1984. "Master, don't worry. I'll take good care of that senior," Fan Lin said with a smile. After watching them leave, he entered the side room. Elder Tan, who was already lying down, saw him enter and hesitated for a moment before asking, "Who is she? When I caused trouble for her by being here?" "Senior, don't worry. Since my master said that nothing will happen, then he has the ability to deal with it. You can rest at ease and recuperate." As Fan Lin spoke, he looked at the old man on the bed and smiled. "No matter who my master is, you just need to know that he won't hurt you." Elder Tan calmed down and did not speak again. Of course, he knew that Fengjiu would not hurt him. He had interacted with him for a period of time, and he trusted his character. "The medicine I drank just now was very expensive, right?" Elder Tan asked again as he wondered if there was anything in his space ring that could compare to that medicine. Fan Lin smiled warmly and said, "Actually, it wasn't expensive because it wasn't for sale. There was a family head in the city who wanted that medicine and was willing to pay a sky-high price to buy it, but my master didn't agree to sell it." As he spoke, Fan Lin came to the table and poured a cup of water and brought it to the bedside. "Senior, have a cup of water." When Elder Tan heard his words, he was speechless for a long time, and his heart was even more shocked. Fengjiu gave such a precious thing to him to drink, just like that? How could this be? On the other side, Fengjiu came to the loft and nestled into Xianyuan Mo's arms. "Although I'm not very busy, why do I feel a little tired today? I don't want to move at all." Xianyuan Mo reached out and hugged her waist. His low and magnetic voice said, "If you're tired, you can sleep. I'll be by your side, so don't worry and sleep. Later, I'll carry you back to rest." Fengjiu, who was nestled in his arms, narrowed her eyes. The two of them were lying on the soft bed, and it was a little crowded. However, almost half of her body was in his arms, which meant that she was lying on top of him. This feeling was very strange, and it made her smile involuntarily. "I like to sleep in a squeeze like this." What she didn't say was that she slept on top of him like this. Thinking of this sentence, the corners of her lips curled up even more. Her thoughts were too evil. If he knew what she was thinking right now, he would probably be shocked. "You like to sleep like this with my arms around you," Xianyuan Mo said. Seeing that most of her body was lying on him, he didn't think about anything else. He just felt sorry for the tiredness between her eyebrows. She had been busy since last night and hadn't had a good rest today. She must be exhausted. But I haven't heard from Lung Hua and Du Fan about today's performance. I wonder how many pills and medicines were sold today. She closed her eyes and fell asleep, but her mouth muttered softly. "It's the same if you look at it tomorrow." Xianyuan Mo stroked her head and touched her soft black hair. He gently stroked along the black hair and felt her breathing become lighter. He knew that she was asleep, so he covered her with a blanket and quietly hugged her. Lung Hua and Du Fan were about to come in and report today's performance, but they saw the scene through the crack in the door. The two of them looked at each other and silently retreated. "Master should be exhausted today. How about this? We'll report to her tomorrow," Du Fan said. Chapter 1985. Fengjiu, who originally only wanted to take a nap and rest, fell asleep in Xianyuan Mo's arms. Xianyuan Mo was worried that she would be uncomfortable sleeping like this, so after hitting her sleeping pressure point, he carried her out. "I'll take her back. You can organize today's results into a document and show it to her tomorrow." You can share more of the work in the building. Don't let her tire herself out. Yama Lord, don't worry. We will. The two nodded. After looking at each other, Dufan said, That's right. Yama Lord, there's something I need to tell you. Holding the familiar Fengjiu in his arms, Xianyuan Mose covered her with a cloak and asked, What is it? Today, Jishui deity lord came and took a fancy to 2 pills on the 2nd floor. In the end, he used gold coins and medicine to exchange for the 2 pills. Those 2 pills were soul-returning pills that can save lives. Hearing this, Xianyuan Mose's eyes flashed. He looked at the 2 and asked, Is there anything else? Actually, he also took a fancy to a few other things, but he probably didn't have the corresponding medicine to exchange for them. In the end, we saw him stand in front of a bottle of medicine on the 2nd floor for a long time before leaving. Actually, they had also intended to tell their mistress about this matter, but seeing that their mistress had fallen asleep, they did not have the opportunity to do so. They could only wait until tomorrow to tell her. But since Yen Zhu was immortal Lord Ji Shui's disciple, and he would be leaving with him soon, it was naturally better to let him know about this matter. Understood. Xianyuan Mose replied and left with Fengjiu. The 2 watched Yama Lord leave with their master. Only then did they withdraw their gazes and return to the building to take care of the remaining matters. As for Xianyuan Mose, he wrapped the cloak around Fengjiu's body and quickly brought her back to the Feng Manor's courtyard. Entering a side room, he gently placed her on the bed and covered her with a blanket. Only then did he walk out. What's wrong? He looked at Hui Lang, who was standing guard outside, and asked, Master, immortal Lord Ji Shui also went to the Heavenly Pill building today. Hui Lang was about to tell him about what immortal Lord Ji Shui had done today when he saw him raise his hand to stop him. I understand. Also, I'm not asking you to follow him to monitor him, but to take care of him when necessary. Xianyuan Mose frowned. Hearing this, Hui Lang sighed. I know, but that still water immortal monarch doesn't need me to do anything. He didn't let me get too close to him, saying that I was disturbing him, but I swear that I didn't say a word when I was following him. Because of this, he had been holding it in for the past few days. All right, we'll talk about it tomorrow. Go back to the Ling Manor and take care of it. Xianyuan Mose waved his hand and turned around to enter the room. After taking off his outer clothes, he laid down beside Fengjiu and reached out to pull her into his embrace. The next morning when Fengjiu woke up, she found herself in Xianyuan Mose's embrace. Looking at the layout of the room, she was no longer in the Heavenly Pill building's pavilion. She glanced at the person on the bed who still hadn't woken up. She raised her leg and was about to quietly get up and step over Xianyuan Mose when she saw the person who was originally sleeping open his eyes. He reached out and hugged her as she stretched her leg over him. Chapter 1986. Aren't you going to sleep for a while? Xianyuan Mose hugged her and rested his chin on her hair. I can't sleep if I wake up. Today, I have to visit Elder Tan and the Heavenly Pill building. She lay in his arms and asked, When do you plan to leave? In a few days. He would not be at ease if he left now. I'm fine here. You don't have to worry. Your master should have been waiting for a few days. Now that the Heavenly Pill building has opened, everything has stabilized. It doesn't matter if you're here or not. Hearing this, Xianyuan Mose asked, Do you want me to leave so badly? I don't know when I'll be back this time, but I have a feeling that I won't be back in a short time. If things were easy to handle, his master would not say such words. I'm just thinking that the sooner you go, the sooner you can come back. She hugged him tightly and smiled. I'll wait for you here. Come back when you're done. As for the things here, you don't have to worry. I'll take care of it. All right then. I'll go back to the Ling Mansion and see how my master is preparing. I want to accompany you to the Heavenly Pill building today, he said slowly. He also felt that it was better to go and come back early. All right, Fengjiu replied. Then she got up and washed up. After the two of them had a simple meal, one returned to the Ling Mansion and the other went to the Heavenly Pill building. When they arrived at the Heavenly Pill building, Fengjiu looked at yesterday's sales list. After seeing the things sold, she could not help but smile. I didn't expect the two heroes to sell so many elixirs. It seems that the families in the city also have a lot of hidden elixirs. Master, the elixirs have been collected here. Take a look. Lung Hua handed over a space ring. Such precious herbs were usually handed over to the master, who would refine them into elixirs or medicines. Feng Jiu took it and glanced at it. Then she transferred the medicinal materials into her space and handed the space ring to Lung Hua. If you don't have enough elixirs, make up for it. The gold coins earned can be used for turnover. Yes, the two of them replied. Then they told her about how immortal Master Jishui had also come to buy elixirs yesterday. Feng Jiu was slightly surprised, but when she thought about how he was going to go overseas with Mose, she understood his intention to buy elixirs. It was true to bring those elixirs with him, just in case. All right, I got it. You guys can go back to work. She waved her hand, indicating for the two of them to leave. Yes, the two of them responded, then turned and walked out. When he reached the first floor, Lung Hua saw Yang shower again. When he saw her, he instinctively wanted to avoid her. After all, if he was entangled with her, it would be difficult for him to escape in a short time. You deal with the front. I'll head to the back first, Lung Hua said. Then he turned around and heard Yang Xiao's voice. Brother Lung Hua. Yang Xiao shouted and quickly walked towards him. Du Fan could not help but smile. That Miss Yang Xiao is looking for you again. You should deal with her yourself. Du Fan patted him on the shoulder and turned to leave. Seeing Du Fan leave, Lung Hua smiled helplessly and shook his head. Then he turned to look at Yang Xiao, who was walking quickly towards him. Miss Yang Xiao, what's the matter? Chapter 1987. This. Lung Hua looked at her hesitantly. You want help here? Yes. Didn't Sister Feng say that I could come over at any time? I don't have anything to do at home, so I came here to help. But I have to tell Sister Feng about this. She looked at him with a smile and whispered, Also, if I help here, I can see Brother Lung Hua often. Hearing this, the gentle smile on Lung Hua's face froze. How about this? Master is in the attic. You go up and tell her yourself. I still have things to do, so I won't accompany you up. Okay. She nodded and said, Then I'll go up first. As she spoke, she walked up the stairs with light steps. Because Yang Xiao often came to the attic, she wasn't stopped from going up. But Lung Hua, who was standing in the same place, looked a little distressed. After watching the figure go up the stairs, he shook his head and sighed. Why are you sighing so early in the morning? Lung Shuang appeared beside him and asked. Sister. Lung Hua saw her and smiled. Why are you here? Don't you need to go up and serve Master? Master doesn't need me to serve him up there. He asked me to come down and see if there's anything I can help with. Lung Shuang said. She looked at her brother and asked with concern, What happened to you just now? Are you too tired these 2 days? No. He shook his head and smiled. Just now, Shower Miss said that she wanted to come to the Heavenly Pill building to help, so I asked her to go up to the attic and ask Master. As he spoke, his voice paused slightly. He looked at his sister and said, Sister, I feel that Shower Miss seems to be particularly enthusiastic about me. Hearing this, Long Shuang glanced at Yang Kai's jade-like face and said, And this Miss Yang has a preference for men with outstanding looks. Although you are indeed quite handsome, and the 8 Phoenix Guard captains are not inferior in terms of looks, she has a special liking for you. The most important reason for this is because you are gentle and polite. Lung Shuang couldn't help but smile when she said that. It was this smile that made her cold and elegant face seem even more lively, even more beautiful and enchanting. This second young lady's personality is rather straightforward, and she is not scheming. I can see that she is somewhat interested in you. Since you're not interested in her, you should make it clear to her as soon as possible. Sister, you usually don't talk much. Why are you talking so much to me today? Sis, you look really good when you smile. Lung Hua looked at her with bright eyes. He felt that his sister's smile was even more funny and gentle. He knew that his sister was very good to him since he was a child. The two of them depended on each other. If they hadn't met Master, perhaps they wouldn't be where they were today. His sister, who used to be as cold as ice, was no longer as indifferent as before after being with Master for a long time. Hearing this, Lung Shuang glanced at him, and the smile on her face disappeared. All right, I still have to look around. You can go and do your thing. With that, she turned around and prepared to leave. But who knew that when she turned around, she saw Nayland Zian walk in. When Nayland Zian saw her, he couldn't help but reveal a big smile. Miss Lung Shuang. Chapter 1988. Oh, I have nothing to do, so I came over to have a look. As Nayland Zian spoke, he looked at Lung Shuang and boldly said, Miss Lung Shuang, are you busy today? I want to invite you to have a cup of tea. Do you have time? Sorry, I'm very busy. Excuse me, Lung Shuang said and turned to leave. Nayland Zian stood there awkwardly and looked at Lung Hua. Well, then I'd better go back first. I'll send you off. Lung Hua smiled gently and sent him to the door, but he stood at the door and didn't move. He looked like he wanted to say something, so he asked, Is there anything else, young Master Nayland? Lung Hua, what is your sister like? Nayland Zian asked. He had never done this kind of thing to please a woman before. He wanted to give her jewelry and jade, but he didn't think she would like it. Lung Hua smiled and said, Young Master Nayland, you don't have to worry. My sister usually doesn't like anything in particular. If she likes this person, even if he gives her something worthless, she will regard it as a treasure. That's true. He nodded and expressed his understanding. Then I'll go back first. Watching him leave, Lung Hua smiled and shook his head. He returned to the Heavenly Pill building. He didn't know what was going on with Nayland Zian. He actually took a fancy to his sister. Unfortunately, his sister had no interest in him. When he entered, he heard Yang Xiao's joyful voice. Brother Lung Hua, Sister Feng agreed. Yang Xiao jumped in front of him and said to him with a smile, Sister Feng agreed. She said I can help here in the future. I see. Then you can ask me or do Fan if you don't understand something in the future. Lung Hua said with a smile. Okay, she responded crisply. Her eyes looked at Lung Hua with unconcealable love and joy, which made Lung Hua a little embarrassed. Thinking of his sister's words, he said, Second young lady, come to the backyard. I have something to say to you. Hearing this, Yang Xiao was a bit surprised, but he still happily replied, Okay. He then followed him to the backyard. There was no one else in the backyard. The two of them sat down at the table. Lung Hua looked at the cheerful little girl in front of him and didn't know what to say for a moment. Brother Lung Hua, what do you want to talk to me about? Yang Xiao asked crisply. He rested his chin on his hands and looked at Lung Hua with a smile. You. He opened his mouth, but changed his mind. It's like this. I want to ask you, did your father agree to come here to help? Will he have any objections? After saying this, he sighed inwardly. He actually couldn't bring himself to say it. Big brother Lung Hua, you don't have to worry, my father agreed. He saw me running over here all day, and he couldn't do anything about it. He also said that if I was in the Heavenly Dan building, he would be at ease. I see. That's good. He nodded and looked at her. In the end, he could only smile. Then you go and do your work. Help greet the guests on the first floor. Okay, then I'll go to the front. Big brother Lung Hua, if you need anything, just call me. She said with a smile, then walked to the front. Du Fan walked out from somewhere and sat down at the table with a light smile. He looked at Lung Hua's helpless expression and said with a smile, Why does our gentle and refined young master Lung Hua also look so helpless? Chapter 1989. I'm also handsome, so why don't any girls like me? Du Fan opened his fan and fanned himself. His smiling face was filled with confusion and doubt. Hearing this, Lung Hua couldn't help but smile. What? You've taken a liking to the second young lady? Du Fan laughed and shook his head. The second young lady is cute, but her figure is too round. She's not my type. I like beauties with curvy bodies and gentle personalities. Men all like beautiful women. It's in their nature. Tell me, who would give up a beautiful woman with a beautiful figure for a chubby little girl? Du Fan, Lung Hua shouted, stopping him from continuing. The two of them caught a glimpse of a light green dress in the corner of the courtyard. It should be the second young lady standing there, listening to their conversation. If the girl heard this, she would probably be very sad. Just as Lung Hua expected, the person standing there was Yang Xiao, who had left and returned. After she inadvertently overheard their conversation, tears welled up in her eyes. She looked down at her round body and pinched her waist. She could only pinch the flesh and couldn't touch the waist at all. Thinking of this, she couldn't help but cry. She didn't think she was fat before, but now that she heard these words, she felt very sad. She didn't dare let the two of them see her and quietly left. Seeing the dress leave, Lung Hua looked at Du Fan. "You gone too far. After all, she's a girl. She's thin-skinned." Du Fan fanned himself and smiled. "I'm just telling the truth. Although the truth sometimes hurts, this second young lady is still in the prime of her youth. If she makes up her mind, her figure should be able to change. This will be more beneficial for her to find a good husband in the future, right?" Lung Hua shook his head. "You can't say it like that. If you really like someone, then you'll like everything about her. Why would you dislike her because she's fat? Love at first sight is because of her beauty, but love grows over time because you truly love that person." Hearing this, Du Fan laughed and joked. "Haven't you never met a girl who's moved your heart? How come you know so much about love and relationships? Could it be that you found someone you like? I've been by Master's side for a long time, so I naturally have some understanding of these things." Lung Hua smiled and said, "Could it be that you think the Yama Lord only loves Master's appearance? How's that possible?" Du Fan answered without thinking. "I heard that when the Yama Lord and Master met, Master's appearance was still disfigured. Even later, it was because of some things that the two of them gradually got together. Even now, I believe that if Master loses everything, whether it's her appearance or her strength, the Yama Lord will still love her as always." Lung Hua nodded and smiled. "So, if you truly love someone, you'll love everything about her. Whether it's her strengths or her weaknesses, in the eyes of the person you love, they're all strengths. Just like Master and the Yama Lord." Hearing this, Du Fan looked at Lung Hua seriously. After a while, his eyes moved slightly and he asked with a smile, "So, if you fall in love with the second young lady, you won't mind if she's chubby?" Chapter 1990. He originally did not have any interest in this matter. He just wanted to stay by his master's side and work properly. How could he be moved by a little second miss? Du Fan laughed in a low voice. There are no absolutes in this world. Something like fate, who knows? He stood up and laughed as he walked out. For the rest of the day, Yang Xiao avoided Lung Hua the entire time. She did not dare approach him because Du Fan's words made her feel inferior, especially when she thought of Lung Hua's gentle temperament and outstanding appearance. As long as she thought of Du Fan's words and saw Lung Hua again, she could not raise her head. Lung Hua was a little surprised by this. Seeing that she was avoiding him, he did not say anything else. As for Fengjiu, she took care of some matters in the Heavenly Pill building. After refining a cauldron of pills, she prepared to return to the Feng Manor. However, when she reached the first floor, she saw Yang Xiao dispiritedly wiping the cabinets. She could not help but call Lung Hua over. "What's wrong with Xiao? She was so excited when I saw her this morning. How did she become like this? Is she not used to it?" Lung Hua could not help but smile bitterly when he heard this. He told her about what had happened in the morning. "It's just like that. I saw that she has been avoiding me since this morning. She doesn't even dare raise her head to look at me when she speaks. I was wondering if Du Fan's words were too excessive. Should I go talk to her?" Hearing this, Fengjiu smiled. "So it's like that. All right, you can go do what you need to do. Leave her to me." She gestured for Lung Hua to leave before walking towards Yang Xiao. "Xiao, elder's sister Feng." Yang Xiao raised her head to look at her. "Are you going back?" I'm planning on going back." "How are you? Are you used to it?" she asked with a smile. "I'm used to it. It's not hard to help out here." She lowered her head again as she spoke. Although it was not hard to do things here, she found that the people who came to buy things like the beautiful female medicine attendants, they were not too willing to find her. Seeing this, Fengjiu smiled. "I still plan to go out and buy some things. Come with me." "Okay," she replied. Then, she walked out from behind the counter and followed Fengjiu out the door. Outside, She kept her head down and fiddled with the corners of her clothes. She seemed to be thinking about something. Occasionally, she would raise her head to look at Fengjiu, but she looked like she wanted to say something. "What's wrong? Do you have something to say to me?" Seeing that she did not speak, Fengjiu asked with a smile. "Sister Feng, do all men like beautiful women? Do they all instinctively like beautiful women?" Hearing this, Fengjiu chuckled. As they walked, she told her about how she met Xianyuan Mose. At the same time, she bought some things in the market. She was going to let Mose bring them back with him. Just like that. At that time, my face was still disfigured. After that, we kept fighting. I don't know when we gradually got together. Actually, it's a man's instinct to like beautiful women. However, what can really keep a man's heart is not your appearance or body, but your person. A person's heart is beautiful. That is true beauty. Chapter 1991. Hearing her words, Yang Xiao, seemed to understand and looked at her in daze. After a while, she asked, "Elder Sister Feng, if I want to lose weight, do you have any way of helping me? You need to move more and sweat more. As long as you have the determination, you can lose weight without my help." She looked at her, then smiled. "However, you don't need to be too skinny. Being chubby is also quite cute." Hearing this, Yang Xiao secretly decided that she had to change. Thus, after shopping with her for a while, she went home first. Fengjiu saw that she was no longer as depressed as before and smiled, also returning to the Feng Manor. Inside the Ling residence, Xianyuan Mose and Jishui deity had already decided on a time to set out. It was set for the next day. Although Xianyuan Mose felt that it was a bit fast, he agreed because he wanted to leave early and return early. "I want to see Fengjiu again tonight." Jishui deity looked at Xianyuan Mose and spoke. Hearing this, Xianyuan Mose glanced at him and asked, "Is something the matter? I want to exchange for a few more pills from her." Jishui deity directly said, not hiding his intentions. Xianyuan Mose stood up and brought him to the Feng Manor. When they passed through the small door between the two manors, Jishui deity could not help but be slightly surprised. The two manors were only separated by a single wall, and this place was connected. He had lived here for a few days, yet he had not noticed it. When they arrived at the Feng Manor, Fengjiu still had not returned. They sat in the courtyard for a while and drank tea until Hui Lang quickly walked over. "Master, the ghost doctor has returned." Outside, Fengjiu slowly walked into the courtyard and saw the two of them sitting there. She was stunned for a moment and then walked forward. "Immortal Master, Zhe, why are you here?" She didn't expect to see the two of them sitting in the courtyard. "My master said that she wanted to exchange for a few pills from you," Xianyuan Mose said, his deep black eyes carrying a trace of a smile as he looked at Fengjiu. When she met his gaze, she knew what he meant. She immediately walked over to the table and sat down. Looking at Jishui deity, she smiled and asked, "What kind of pills does deity want?" Jishui deity looked at her and asked, "Do you have any magic treasures that you need?" "I don't have many older spirit medicines left, but I have quite a few magic treasures and immortal tools that I can exchange for pills and medicines." Xianyuan Mose and Fengjiu glanced at each other. Xianyuan Mose didn't say anything, but picked up his teacup and took a sip of tea. Fengjiu, on the other hand, smiled and took out 3 medicine bottles from her space and placed them on the table. She then took out another bottle of medicine. "I know that a mortal monarch has gone to exchange for 2 pills. I wonder if these pills of mine are suitable for a mortal monarch." Immortal Master Ji Shui glanced at her. Then his gaze landed on the pill bottles in front of him. He asked, "What kind of pills are these? What are their uses?" "This is an internal pill. No matter how severe the internal injury is, it can be cured. The bottle in the middle contains a rank 6 detoxification pill. I believe that deity should know what kind of poison a rank 6 detoxification pill can cure, so I won't say too much. As for this bottle, it is a medicine for muscle regeneration and blood staunching. It is hard to avoid injuries when walking outside. This medicine can be used to heal external injuries." She spoke slowly. Her voice paused, and she picked up the last bottle of medicine. As long as this medicine is taken, your strength will increase in an instant. This is a treasure that can save your life in a dangerous situation. I feel that deity should need these 4 things the most. What does deity think? Chapter 1992. Fengjiu was astonished to see the table full of magic tools, immortal tools, and elixirs. He didn't expect Immortal Lord Ji Shui to have so many things in his collection, and all of them looked pretty good. You can pick them yourself. Immortal Lord Ji Shui said, letting her pick from the items, while he looked at the elixirs and elixirs. Fengjiu picked and looked, and finally took many life-saving immortal tools, as well as a few precious elixirs. Finally, she returned the rest to him. Immortal Lord, I'll take these. She pointed at the items she picked out and said. Immortal Lord Ji Shui glanced at them and nodded. You're not greedy. She didn't take all of his things. Hearing this, Fengjiu smiled, but didn't say anything. Instead, he took out a bottle of elixirs. This bottle contains the strange fragrance elixir. It has the effect of repelling poison. Immortal Lord, keep it too. I want to take advantage of you. I'll give you these 2 as well. Immortal Lord Ji Shui took Fengjiu's elixirs and picked out 2 defensive magic tools for her. Since that's the case, I'll accept them without hesitation. She smiled and put away the items, preparing to give some to Leng Hua and the others, so that they could protect themselves. We're leaving tomorrow. Rest early tonight. Immortal Lord Ji Shui stood up and said to Xianyuan Mose, then turned and returned to the Ling residence. After Immortal Lord Ji Shui left, Fengjiu took out the items from the space. I bought some things when I came back. You can keep them in the space. They might be useful in the future. Also, I had someone make 10 sets of clothes for you a few days ago. I want to get them just now. Take them with you. Also, this is for you. She handed him a spirit fruit in an ice box. This is a spirit fruit from the bottle tree in the space. Old White ate one and mutated into a white dragon. Later, I looked into it and found that this fruit can increase the strength of beasts and cultivators. If they eat it, they can also increase the strength of cultivators. If they are lucky, they can even produce a mutated spirit root. A mutated spiritual root. Xianyuan Mose was slightly surprised. Just this spiritual fruit? Well, I read about it in an ancient book, but I haven't eaten it myself, so I don't know if it's real or not. Moreover, there are only a few fruits on a vase tree. I learned from the ancient book that the vase tree blossoms and bears fruit every 100 years. At most, it can only bear a few fruits at a time. When you go overseas this time, find a chance to eat this spirit fruit and see its effect. Yes, he nodded and said, don't let anyone else know about this fruit, lest you attract trouble. I know, she replied softly. You, on the other hand, have to be careful when you go overseas this time. Don't be careless. You have to come back safely to see me. Hearing this, Xianyuan Mo smiled and held her hand. I know, don't worry. I asked the kitchen to prepare a few dishes. Let's go to the pavilion in front to eat. Fengjiu suggested. Okay. He held her hand and walked out, walking around the garden and the courtyard before sitting down in the pavilion. The 2 chatted for a while, and not long after, the servants served a few dishes. The 2 enjoyed this moment of peace and quiet in the pavilion, and only returned to the courtyard to rest when the sky turned dark. Chapter 1993. Immortal Monarch, Zhe went overseas with you. Although I don't know when he will return, I hope that no matter when he returns, he will be fine. She looked at Immortal Monarch Ji Shui and said. Hearing this, Immortal Monarch Ji Shui's eyes flashed. Don't worry, I will do my best to let him return safely. Xianyuan Mose heard Fengjiu's words and felt a warm current in his heart. He reached out and hugged her, kissing her forehead. Don't worry about me. Just take care of yourself. You too. She reached out and hugged his waist, greedily smelling his scent. After a long time, she let go of him. Take care. Xianyuan Mose looked at her deeply, then turned and left with his master. The 2 of them left the residence and flew on their swords, disappearing from sight in a short while. Ghost Doctor. Don't worry. Master will definitely return safely. Hui Lang said from behind. He and Ying Yi were left behind, while Master left alone with immortal monarch Ji Shui. No one knew when he would return. Let's go back, Feng Jiu said, then turned and returned to the residence. In the next few days, sometimes she would cultivate in the residence, sometimes she would go to the Heavenly Pill building to refine pills. The days gradually became busy. Other than the people from 100 River City who came to the Heavenly Pill building to buy pills, people from other cities also came after hearing the news. However, at first, there were some ordinary people and cultivators who came. After a day or two, the people who came in and out gradually became people with status. This was because the Heavenly Pill building's pills were not cheap. Not to mention ordinary people, even some ordinary rogue cultivators could not afford to buy them. Not to mention the pills on the second floor that required some spiritual herbs with age rings to exchange. Most of the pills refined by Feng Jiu were refined using dozens of precious spirit medicines, so the price naturally could not be close to the people. Furthermore, the Heavenly Dan building did not have low-grade pills and the like, so gradually the Heavenly Dan building became a place where people with status came in and out. Master, the president of the Alchemy Guild, is here again. He says he wants to see you. Lung Hua came to the backyard and said to his master, who was picking medicinal ingredients in the yard. No, Feng Jiu said without raising his head. Hearing this, Lung Hua paused for a moment, then said, then this subordinate will reply to them. Although he felt that it would be best to meet with the president of the Alchemist Guild, it was obvious that his master wasn't interested in them. Only, he didn't know if his repeated rejections would cause them to harbor hatred in their hearts. After all, President Fan had already sought an audience with him many times. Just as Lung Hua turned to leave, Du Fan also walked in. Master, a person came today with a medicine request order. This is the medicine request order. Feng Jiu glanced at the medicine order and asked, what medicine did that person ask for? As he spoke, his hands did not stop moving. The Heavenly Pill building had issued some medicine orders and medicinal pills. Anyone who had a medicine order or medicinal pill could come here to ask for the corresponding medicine as long as they prepared what she wanted. That person said that he could only tell you after seeing Master. Du Fan slightly lowered his head and said. Hearing this, Feng Jiu stopped. She patted the dust on her hands and said unhurriedly, since that's the case, bring him in and let me see him. Chapter 1994. At this time, the president of the Alchemy Guild was chatting with the person who was asking for medicine. He looked at the medicine token in the other party's hand and couldn't help but be curious. I heard that the Heavenly Pill building doesn't give out many ghost medicine tokens. Since you're not from 100 River City, why do you have a medicine token? The person who was asking for medicine was a middle-aged man. Behind him were 4 powerful cultivators. Seeing that the other party was the president of the Alchemy Guild, he said, I spent a lot of money and effort to buy this from someone else. Although I'm not from 100 River City, I heard that the ghost doctor of this Heavenly Pill building has great medical skills, so I'm here to see you. I see. President Fan nodded in realization. Then, he saw Lung Hua walk out. He couldn't help but ask, Manager Lung, is the building lord willing to see me? President Fan, I'm really sorry, Lung Hua said apologetically. Hearing this, he couldn't help but feel disappointed. I know. The building lord has a guest today, so I'll come another day. I'll take my leave first. He cupped his hands and smiled at the middle-aged man before turning to leave. The middle-aged man's eyes flashed. He didn't expect that the building lord of the Heavenly Pill building, Ghost Dr. Feng Jiu, would refuse to see the president of the Alchemy Guild. This surprised him. At this time, he wasn't surprised at all. If he didn't have the medicine token, he might not have been able to see the ghost doctor. At this time, Du Fan walked out and made a gesture to the middle-aged man. Please follow me. Your servant will wait here for the time being. The middle-aged man said something to the people behind him, then followed Du Fan to the back. When he arrived at the backyard, he saw a woman in red picking medicinal herbs. Thinking of the description of the ghost Dr. Feng Jiu, he knew that the woman in front of him was the ghost Dr. Feng Jiu, the owner of the Heavenly Pill building. Greetings, Ghost Doctor. He stepped forward and cupped his hands. He didn't look down on her because she was a woman and was young. Fengjiu looked up at the person and said, "Please sit." She gestured to the table beside her, then put down what she was doing and took the medicine token to the table and sat down. Du Fan asked someone to serve 2 cups of tea, then stood quietly to the side. "What medicine do you want to ask for?" She played with the medicine token in her hand. She didn't ask about its origin or anything else, only what medicine he wanted. His tone was respectful and sincere as he said, "Ghost Doctor, I'm here today to ask for medicine for my son. He came back a few months ago with injuries on his body. He didn't say anything, so we didn't pay much attention to it. However, after that, all his other injuries healed, but there was a burn wound that couldn't heal. No matter what medicine we used, it kept festering, and it's getting more and more serious now. Therefore, I would like to ask for a medicine that can heal my son's wound, and I hope that the ghost doctor can bestow the medicine. Burn s wounds, ing. Ding medicine. T-tess." She looked at the middle-aged man in front of her, who had an upright look between his eyebrows, and asked slowly, "Did your son come with you on this trip?" "Yes, but because his wounds are festering, I'll let him stay in a courtyard first. He didn't come with me to the Heavenly Pill building." Chapter 1995. Hearing this, the middle-aged man was overjoyed. He quickly stood up and thanked him. "Then I'll go back and prepare now. I'll bring my son here in the afternoon." Fengjiu nodded and asked Du Fan to send him off. After the two of them walked out, Fengjiu went to see Elder Tan again. "Grandpa Tan, how are you today?" She came to the room and sat down. "I'm much better now. I can get out of bed and walk around." Elder Tan said as he looked at Fengjiu and said, "I really have to thank you this time. If it wasn't for you, I might not have been able to save my old life. Don't call me Grandpa Tan anymore. I really can't afford to be called Grandpa by you. If you think highly of me, just call me Elder Tan." She smiled and said, "Okay." She replied and then asked, "What are your plans for the future? If you don't have any other plans or places to go, you can actually stay here and help me." Hearing this, Elder Tan was surprised. "Can I? I can stay here?" He had no fixed residence, and he couldn't go back to the place he used to be. If he could stay here with her, it would be a good home. "Of course you can. You can help me take care of some things here. It'll be easier for me to help you in the building." She smiled and said, "Then let's arrange it this way. You should recuperate first and stay in the Heavenly Pill building in the future. At that time, I'll introduce you to some people in the building." Elder Tan couldn't hide his excitement. "My life is yours from now on." She saved him and gave him a home to return to. How could he not repay her well? Fengjiu stayed in the room for a while before leaving. After taking care of the matters in the backyard, she went to the attic to rest. In the afternoon, Lung Hua came and said that the people from the Gu family had come. In the backyard of the Heavenly Pill building, in addition to the middle-aged man, there was another man in his 20s or 30s. The man was dressed in a navy blue robe. He was tall and sturdy, and his face was resolute. He was somewhat similar to the middle-aged man. At this time, he was sitting upright and drinking tea. His expression was calm and indifferent, as if he didn't care whether the injuries on his body could be cured or not. When Fengjiu came in, she saw the man in the navy blue robe. Even though the man was sitting upright, he gave off a very tall feeling. His figure was somewhat similar to her brother, Guan Shilin. What caught her attention the most was his calm and indifferent temperament. "Ghost Doctor." When Patriarch Gu saw Feng 9, he hurriedly got up and cupped his hands with a smile. "This is my son, Gu Xiangyi." Seeing this, Gu Xiangyi stood up but did not bow. She only nodded. "Ghost Doctor." Then he looked at Fengjiu calmly. Like many people, when he saw Fengjiu for the first time, he was stunned. However, Fengjiu noticed that other than being stunned when he saw her for the first time, he quickly returned to normal. He looked at her with appreciation. This kind of temperament and composure was rare. "Ghost Doctor, it's like this. My son's injury is on his shoulder. Because of the severity of the injury, he can't feel his right hand, so..." Patriarch Gu was explaining why his son didn't salute. Fengjiu smiled and said, "It's okay. Sit down." She motioned for the two to sit down. Then, she said to Gu Xiangyi, "Give me your hand." Chapter 1996. Take off your shirt. I'll take a look at your wound. Feng Jiu gestured. Gu Xiangyi paused and looked at him hesitantly, saying, "Ghost doctor, my wound is a bit scary." She was a woman after all, so he didn't want to scare her. Hearing this, Feng Jiu couldn't help but laugh. Scary wound? It's fine. I haven't encountered a wound that can scare me. Family head Gu couldn't help but say, "Ghost doctor is a doctor. What kind of wound haven't you seen? Come, I'll help you take off your shirt." He was worried that his right hand wouldn't be able to remove his clothes. "No need, I'll do it myself." He refused his father's help and untied his belt to take off his outer shirt. However, while the outer shirt was easy to remove, the inner shirt wasn't so easy to remove. Moreover, he had only taken off a simple piece of clothing, but his forehead was already covered in sweat. Seeing this, Feng Jiu said to Lung Shuang, "Lung Shuang, help him take off his clothes and remove the cloth tied around him." "Yes." Lung Shuang, who was waiting on the side, responded and took 2 steps forward to Gu Xiangyi's side to help him take off his clothes. Faced with the sudden approach of a woman, Gu Xiangyi instinctively took a step back. "No need. I'll have my father help me." Seeing this, Feng Jiu raised his eyebrows and looked at Gu Xiangyi with interest. Lung Shuang paused for a moment. She glanced at the man in front of her and then looked at her master. Family head Gu reacted and stepped forward, smiling as he said, "Ghost doctor and Miss Lung, please excuse us. My son's personality is a bit strange, but he doesn't mean any harm. It's fine, just take off your clothes." Feng Jiu rested his chin on one hand and looked at the father and son with a smile. Gu Xiangyi was a bit uncomfortable when he heard this. Why did it sound so strange? He glanced at the ghost doctor and saw that the other party had a smile on his face. His gaze carried a hint of playfulness as he stared at him, while the black-clothed woman called Lung Shuang had a cold expression on her face. She walked back to the side and stood silently. He couldn't help but find it strange that there was a young man behind the ghost doctor. Why didn't she ask that young man to help her take off his clothes and remove the cloth from his wound? Instead, she asked the woman in black. He really couldn't understand what kind of person the ghost doctor was. Her actions and actions didn't seem like a normal person's. As his clothes were removed and the cloth on his wound, the wound, rotten smell even stronger than before, which made Gu Xiangyi felt a bit embarrassed. Feng Jiu, who smelled the odor, raised her eyebrows. She stared at the wound and stood up. The wound was between the right arm and the shoulder. The festering area was the size of a palm, and the shoulder bone was faintly visible. The situation was very serious. What surprised Feng Jiu was that this person could still maintain a calm expression with such an injury on his body. This person was not simple. "How did you get this wound? How did you get hurt?" she asked, looking at Gu Xiangyi's resolute face and calm expression. Gu Xiangyi paused for a moment, then said, "I encountered a volcanic eruption in the volcanic forest and was scalded by the lava spewing out." Chapter 1997. Gu Xiangyi's eyes flashed as she glanced at Feng Jiu, asking, "Ghost doctor, you don't know about the volcano forest?" "I don't know. I just came here not long ago." She shook her head and said, "The volcano forest is the forest that most people go there to train. However, there's a large volcano in the depths that erupts every 3 months. Although it is dangerous when it erupts, precious materials will be ejected from the underground rock ores when the volcano erupts. Due to the special materials contained in the magma, it can even melt the ground, let alone human skin and flesh. My injury was only splashed by some small rock ores at that time, but after I used medicine, it didn't have any effect, causing the wound to worsen." Hearing this, Feng Jiu nodded, then said to the two, "The wound is already worsened to the bone. If it isn't treated as soon as possible, losing your hand is a small matter, but it is very likely that you will lose your life as well." She looked at Gu Xiangyi and said, "If you hadn't been taking medicinal pills to suppress the internal fire in your body, the internal fire caused by the wound would be enough to cause the poisonous fire to attack your heart." Hearing this, the hearts of the father and son moved. It was indeed because she had been taking medicinal pills to suppress the poisonous fire. Because the wound was festering and inflamed, the poisonous fire couldn't come out and was forced into the body. If it wasn't for those medicinal pills, she wouldn't have been able to live until now. And as far as they knew, no one who had been scalded by the volcano's magma had survived. They had come here to give it a try. After all, a glimmer of hope was always a glimmer of life. "Please save me, Ghost Doctor," Patriarch Gu hurriedly said. Fengjiu smiled and said, "Patriarch Gu should know the rules here. I know, in addition to the medicine order, you also need the corresponding gold coins and 3 500-year-old spiritual herbs. I've already brought them." Patriarch Gu hurriedly said, taking out 3 500-year-old spiritual herbs from his space. Unexpectedly, Fengjiu looked at the 3 spiritual herbs and shook his head. "Although these 3 spiritual herbs are 500-year-old, they are not what I need, nor are they necessary to treat your son's injury. So these 3 spiritual herbs are of no use to me." Patriarch Gu's face paled when he heard this. He looked at Fengjiu, then at Gu Xiangyi, not knowing what to do for a moment. These spiritual herbs were from his family's collection. There were very few 500-year-old spiritual herbs, and they had been collected with great difficulty. Now, they weren't the spiritual herbs he needed then. Gu Xiangyi heard this and frowned. He looked at Fengjiu and asked, "Ghost Doctor, are you sure you can treat my injury?" "Of course." Fengjiu nodded with a smile. "Doctor, what are your conditions?" "As long as I can do it, I won't." Patriarch Gu reacted when he heard his son's words. He looked at Fengjiu and said, "As long as the Ghost Doctor can save my son, our Gu family will not forget this great kindness. If you have any requests in the future, we will not refuse." Fengjiu shook his head and looked at Gu Xiangyi with a smile. "No need to be so serious. I just need you to do something for me." Hearing this, the father and son of the Gu family were slightly surprised and asked, "What is it?" Chapter 1998. Just like that, Patriarch Gu was in disbelief. Wasn't this the same as asking them to be the spiritual medicine supplier of the Heavenly Pill building? This was a cooperative relationship. Not to mention them, it was an extremely good thing for any family that was in the business of spiritual medicine. However, what surprised them even more was that it only took her half a day to find out that they were in the business of medicinal herbs. When they thought of the 3 500-year-old spiritual medicines that he had just taken out, they couldn't help but blush. Although those 3 500-year-old spiritual medicines were hard to come by and were part of their collection, for a medicinal family like the Gu clan, it wasn't difficult to obtain such aged spiritual medicines. All they needed was time. However, the other party didn't care about it, and instead threw out such an opportunity for cooperation, which made him feel that he was a little narrow-minded. Fengjiu smiled and said, "The spiritual medicines that I want are the best. Not just any spiritual medicine can be given to me. Other than your Gu clan, I have another source of spiritual medicines. However, if you want to expand your business, you can't lack spiritual medicines." Gu Xiangyi, who was next to him, nodded when he heard this. "That's not a problem. In the future, I will personally check all the spiritual medicines that your Heavenly Pill building wants." "Very good." She nodded in satisfaction and said to him, "Come in with me." Then she turned and walked to another empty room. Gu Xiangyi followed her, but family head Gu wanted to follow her, but was stopped. "Family head Gu, just wait here." When they entered the room, Fengjiu gestured for him to lie down on the bed. He took out a small knife from his space to disinfect it and said, "The rotten flesh on your wound needs to be removed before I can apply medicine. Otherwise, it will be useless. The process of removing the rotten flesh will be a little painful, so bear with it." Gu Xiangyi responded and lay on the bed without moving until a sharp pain hit him. His body immediately tensed up, and the sweat on his forehead gradually seeped out and dripped down drop by drop. Lung Hua, who was next to him, stood still and watched his master, who was wearing a mask, remove the rotten flesh on the wound bit by bit and clean the wound. As time passed, the rotten flesh on the wound was removed and a fist-sized hole appeared. His shoulder was oozing black because of the poisonous fire. His master took a sharp knife and scraped the black bone until the black poisonous fire was removed. Only then did he apply a light green, transparent ointment to the wound. The cold feeling seeped into his bones and flesh, and Gu Xiangyi couldn't help but exhale softly. The cold feeling gradually eased the burning pain of the wound, and the numbness of the pain disappeared. What replaced it was a kind of heart-piercing coldness. Faintly, under this coldness, he felt that the fingers of his right hand, which had been numb before, were gradually regaining feeling. Feng Jiu cleaned and disinfected the knife and put it away. He washed his hands, then took off his mask and stood up. The wound has been treated and the ointment has been applied. Here is the ointment, which has the effect of restoring muscle and relieving pain. When you go back, apply it once in the morning and once in the evening. It will take about half a month for the wound to recover. Thank you. He sat up and tilted his head slightly to look at the wound on his shoulder that was covered with ointment. Chapter 1999. When Gu Xiangyi walked out after bandaging her wound, she happened to hear her father ask the ghost doctor why she wanted to cooperate with him. Hearing this, his footsteps paused. Indeed, he didn't understand why she wanted to cooperate with them. Feng Jiu smiled when he heard this and said, "Naturally, it's because she values your Gu family's integrity and credibility." Hearing this, Master Gu looked at her deeply. "Thank you for thinking so highly of us, Ghost Doctor. Don't worry, my Gu family won't let you down." Feng Jiu nodded slightly. "Then let's find another time to talk about the cooperation." "Okay." Master Gu looked at his son who walked out and saw that his face was paler than before. He stepped forward and came to his side. "Xiangyi, how do you feel?" "I'm fine, father," Gu Xiangyi said and looked at Feng Jiu. "Ghost Doctor, we'll visit again another day." Feng Jiu smiled and then looked at Lung Hua. "Send the two of them off for me." Master Gu, this way please." He made a gesture of invitation and led them out. "Goodbye," the two said and turned to leave. Not long after, Lung Hua came back. "Master, they've left." Feng Jiu nodded and saw Luo Yu walk in. "Master, there's news." What news?" "It's about the Han Rong that Master asked us to investigate." "There's news about him," Luo Yu said. Seeing the smile on his master's face disappear, he said in a deep voice, "He has indeed entered the devil path. Moreover, this subordinate has received news that he will soon go to the volcano forest to collect some natural volcanic material. If you want to take his life, this is a good opportunity." Since his master returned, he had secretly investigated Han Rong's news, and he only received this news today. Han Rong caused the Feng family to suffer so much. He believed that his master would never let him go after knowing this news. "Volcano forest?" "Ha!" She chuckled, but there was no trace of a smile in her eyes. She walked step by step in the courtyard. After a long while, she instructed, "Lung Hua, when the time comes, you can talk to them about the cooperation with the Gu clan. You guys keep an eye on the Heavenly Pill building. At present, ordinary people won't provoke us. I'll make a trip to the fire forest. When the time comes, leave the fire phoenix behind to guard it." Hearing this, they couldn't help but look at each other. Luo Yu asked, "Master, why don't you just let us go? We have also seen his portrait and recognize that Han Rong. If we go, wouldn't it be better for Master to stay here? If that Han Rong was easy to deal with, he wouldn't have survived until now." Feng Jiu sneered. Since he took over the body, he knew that the people from Yindian and I were looking for him. He rarely went out and stayed by the demon venerable's side. Now that this person has the opportunity, I naturally have to meet him personally. With Han Rong's cunning, I won't be at ease even if you guys go. I have to do this matter personally. It just so happens that I also want to see the natural material in the fire forest. If it's useful, I'll bring some back." She said slowly, glanced at them, and then smiled. "If there's something you can't solve, you can also go to Mo-chun. I will ask him to help look after the Heavenly Pill building during this time." Chapter 2000. No need. It's more convenient for me to move on my own. Moreover, Mo-chun is like a moving luminous pearl. Wherever he goes, he'll be dazzling. If I let him follow me, wouldn't I be asking for trouble? She gently smiled. With Mo Chin's appearance and aura, how could it be easy to hide? But they still wanted to say something, but they were stopped. All right, I know what you're worried about. Don't worry. It's not like it's the first time I've been outside by myself. She waved her hand, indicating that they didn't need to say anything more. She then said to Luo Yu, organize the information and information for me. Get to me later. Yes, Luo Yu replied, then turned and left. If someone comes to ask for pills or medicine while I'm gone, you guys deal with it. If you can't deal with it, then wait for me to come back. Feng Jiu said to Du Fan and Lung Hua. Yes, the two of them replied. After giving her instructions, she went up to the pavilion and took out the transportation scroll from her space. Looking at it, she found the landmark of the Fire Mountain Forest and couldn't help but smile. This thing really is a treasure. It can be said that you can come and go as you please. She softly said. She couldn't help but feel her heart skip a beat. She wondered if there were any places outside of the sea on it. Thus, she carefully looked at it. She found that there were no landmarks outside of the sea on the transportation scroll. Instead, there were places like the Phoenix Dynasty. There's no place outside of the sea, but there's the Phoenix Dynasty. If that's the case, going back is easy. She softly muttered. She took the transportation scroll and looked at it, then finally put it away. She took care of some of the matters in the Heavenly Pill building and made some arrangements. When it was evening, Luo Yu brought the information he had prepared to her. She gave him some instructions, then returned to the Feng Manor. She had someone send a message to the Nayland family the next day, telling him to come to the Feng Manor. The next morning, Mo Chun arrived at the Feng Manor. Under the guidance of Lung Hua, he arrived at the inner courtyard. Seeing the table in the courtyard with a few dishes and Feng Jiu smiling at him, his eyes flashed, and he walked forward with a smile. What day is it today? You're actually inviting me to the manor for a drink? Didn't I say I was going to treat you to a drink? These are all my treasures. Feng Jiu smiled and poured him a glass of wine. At the same time, he joked, don't worry, my wine won't get you drunk after 3 glasses. You can drink it without worry. Hearing this, Mo Chun laughed. He lifted his robe and sat down at the table. Then, he said, you'd better be straightforward. If you don't make things clear to me first, I won't be able to drink to my heart's content. Feng Jiu smiled and said, it's not a big deal. I'm just going out for a while, so I wanted to tell you to help me take care of the Heavenly Pill building. Oh, you're going out? Where are you going? He was a little surprised. Xinyuan Mose had only left for a few days. Why was she going out? I'm going to the fire forest to deal with some matters. She raised her wine glass and took a sip. I'll leave in a few days. Are you planning to go alone? He frowned slightly. What is it that you can't let your subordinates handle? You have to go alone? If you're going alone, you should bring some people. If something happens to you while you're out alone, how will I explain it to that petty man? Chapter 2001. He's not here right now. Even if he was here, I wouldn't be afraid of him. Mo Chin smiled as he spoke. He also picked up his wine cup and took a sip. The wine was mellow in his mouth, and a mouthful of spiritual energy flowed through his body. It was very comfortable. Did you make this spirit wine yourself? He asked. You can say that. It's just some high-quality spirit wine that I made myself. How is it? The taste isn't bad, right? She played with the wine cup as she looked at the wine cup in his hand. It's not bad. The taste is very special. It's not inferior to the one I drank last time. Today, I prepared 3 types of wine. Try them and see which one suits your taste. I'll give you 2 jars. She put down the wine cup and picked up her chopsticks to eat. Hearing this, Mo Chun smiled elegantly. You want me to help you look after the Heavenly Pill building, so you're giving me wine? That's a bit too much. In any case, we've known each other for a long time. That's because I want to see you. I'm not willing to give it to anyone else. As Feng Jiu spoke, he smiled and narrowed his eyes. Today, these dishes were specially prepared by the kitchen. This wine was also specially prepared. Even if you're not busy, you should help me. Don't you think it's better if I go with you? He looked at her, and his handsome face was serious. The danger in the Fire Mountain Forest is something you can't estimate. If you go alone, I won't feel at ease. Feng smiled. Compared to this, just help me look after the Heavenly Pill building. I don't have many friends here. The only one I can trust and have the ability to do this is you. Hearing her say this, Chun helplessly smiled. It seems that you've made up your mind. No matter what I say, you won't change your mind. Since that's the case, I won't say anything more. You should be careful when you go to the Fire Mountain Forest. I know. Come, let's drink. She poured wine for him and said, after drinking this wine, try another type of wine. The taste is completely different from this one. In the courtyard, the two drank wine and ate while chatting. On this day, Chun stayed in the Feng Manor until evening before preparing to leave. All right, it's getting late. I'll head back first. Chun rubbed his forehead and stood up. His body was slightly wobbly as he shook his head and said with a smile, You said this wine wouldn't get you drunk. You've been drinking from morning till now. It's already a miracle that you're not drunk yet. Feng Jiu didn't move from his seat. He held his slightly red cheeks with one hand and smiled at the swaying figure. He shouted outside, Lung Shuang? Lung Shuang? Master, Lung Shuang walked in from outside the courtyard, glanced at the two people in the courtyard, then came to Feng Jiu's side. Go and prepare a bowl of hangover soup for him. Feng Jiu waved his hand as he spoke. His expression didn't look like he was drunk. It was just that his face was slightly red because he had drunk quite a bit of wine. Chun, sit a bit longer. Let Ling Shuang bring you some hangover soup. You can't go back like this. She smiled and gestured for him to sit while saying, With your alcohol tolerance, let me tell you, in the future, don't compete with Zay in drinking. You're not his opponent. Chapter 2002. Lung Shuang, send him off. Have someone prepare a carriage to send him back. Feng Jiu shouted to the outside. Only then did he stand up with the support of the table. He shook his head with a smile and walked back to his room. She returned to her room and washed her face before lying down on the bed. However, just as she was about to fall asleep, she heard the sound of footsteps on the roof. In an instant, she opened her eyes, and a cold light flashed through them. Which daring person dared to come to her home before the sky turned dark? She closed her eyes and calmly listened. From the sound of the footsteps, she could tell that there was only one person's footsteps. Did they come to scout the area? Her heart skipped a beat, and she ran through all the possible enemies in her mind. However, she felt that with the current reputation of the Heavenly Pill building, it was impossible for the various powers in 100 River City to move against her. Then it was possible that it was the group of people that had chased after Elder Tan. Ever since that day, there had been no news from those people. She had asked Luo Yu and the others to investigate, but in the end, they had only found a hidden force. Those people had not made any moves, so she thought that this matter should have come to an end. After about half a stick of incense, Lung Shuang's voice came from outside. Master, come in. Hearing the voice coming from inside, Lung Shuang walked in. Arriving at the bedside, he quietly said, Master, the manor's hidden guard said that someone came to investigate our Feng Manor. However, the other party left after scouting the area. They did not act rashly and alert the enemy. She covered herself with the blankets and closed her eyes, not opening them. Have them increase their vigilance over the next 2 days. As for what they discovered earlier, since the other party did not reveal themselves, pass down the order that they do not reveal themselves. Yes. Lung Shuang complied, then turned around and left. Feng Jiu slept for a while. When night fell, 10 or so imperceptible footsteps passed over the Feng Manor's roof and quietly appeared in the Feng Manor's courtyard. Sure enough, there are no weak soldiers under a strong general. Do they already know that we would come? An evil voice rang out in the night. When this voice rang out, the surroundings were still quiet, and there was nothing out of the ordinary. However, it was precisely this excessive silence that was abnormal. The door slowly opened, and Feng Jiu, dressed in red, slowly walked out. His gaze fell on the man who was protected in the middle of the courtyard. He calmly sized him up. Are you from the Black Hill Hall? The Black Hill Hall was the faction that was chasing after Elder Tan. This faction could be said to be an assassination faction and was considered to be one of the top in this area. When a man in the middle heard this, his sharp eyes flashed. He stared at Feng Jiu with surprise in his eyes, as if he had found prey. I didn't expect the ghost doctor to not only have excellent medical skills, but also have good investigative skills. You found out that we are from the Black Kill Hall in such a short time. Are you the hall master of the Black Kill Hall? She furrowed her brows slightly, somewhat displeased that the other party was staring at her, as if she was his prey. Clearly, this person did not have this bit of awareness at all. On the contrary, he did not conceal his naked ambition at all. Chapter 2003. Feng Jiu chuckled. His laughter was cold, and it did not reach his eyes. She leaned against the door, and her clear eyes swept across the dozen people in the courtyard. Finally, her gaze landed on the man who was leading them. Is that so? Unfortunately, I don't admire you, she said casually. She spoke absent-mindedly, as she crossed her arms and looked at the man. The words that came out of her mouth, however, were an order to the people of the Feng Manor. Kill the intruder. These indifferent words were neither fast nor slow, neither light nor heavy as they spread across the night sky. The cold, murderous aura in those words caused the people from Black Kill Hall to be startled. This woman dared to make an enemy out of the Black Kill Hall? Just as they were thinking about this, they suddenly saw over 20 figures appear in their surroundings. Most of these people were at the peak of the fairy realm. These people were none other than the team members that Feng Jiu had brought along. They had originally left separately. However, some of them had returned to her side after leaving for a period of time, and they continued to work by her side. This was because, for these loose cultivators, as long as it was something that they recognized, anywhere could be their home, and anywhere could be their final destination. Thus, when Feng Jiu gave the order, they instantly attacked the people in the courtyard. They had been trained to be tough and had outstanding fighting abilities. They knew where the weakest part of a person's body was, and when they attacked, they went straight for their opponent's fatal spot. Sharp sword energy filled the air with killing intent. The people from the Black Kill Hall were besieged by over 20 people, and they were besieged by over 20 fairy realm powerhouses. This caused the faces of the people from the Black Kill Hall to change slightly, and they quickly reacted. In response to Feng Jiu's order to kill, the Black Kill Hall's master only curled up the corners of his mouth and laughed. His burning gaze was filled with determination as he stared at the enchanting woman in red in front of him. As expected, you're to my liking. I'll definitely take you. With just you? Feng Jiu laughed coldly. His hand swept past his waist, and the Qing Feng sword appeared. A green light mixed with a sharp air current formed a cold sword energy that attacked the hall master. That's right, I'll do it. He narrowed his eyes and stared at her with interest. Originally, I was only here to take a look, but I've changed my mind. I'll kidnap you tonight. As he spoke, he gathered spirit energy in his hand and used it to block Feng Jiu's sword chi. He dodged to the side and took a step forward, arriving at Feng Jiu's side. Beauties are common, but such a charming beauty is rare. Ghost Doctor, don't you think so? He stretched out his finger to touch Feng Jiu's chin. However, before he could touch Feng Jiu's chin, he saw a green light flash past, and he felt a sharp pain in his arm. Yes, he grunted and quickly retreated a few steps. He tilted his head slightly and looked at the wound on his arm caused by the Qing Feng sword. His gaze swept over to Feng Jiu. Feng Jiu raised his chin slightly and met the hall master's gaze. His tone was cold and mocking. Why don't you take a mirror and look at your toad-like appearance? Even if you dare to speak, I don't dare to listen. The hall master's face stiffened when he heard this. He stared at her with a gloomy expression. You have a sharp tongue. Wait until you've fallen into my hands before we talk about it again. Chapter 2004. Hiss. He let out a muffled groan and sucked in a breath of cold air. His legs were instantly clamped together, and his face was flushed red as he quickly retreated. He pointed at Feng Jiu in disbelief. You are not a woman. He gritted his teeth and pointed at her. The important part between his legs had been fiercely kicked, and it was so painful that his legs were trembling. He never thought that this peerless woman with an outstanding temperament would actually kick a man's most vulnerable part the moment she fought with him. Such a crude kick, yet it was used so cleanly and nimbly. That kick came too quickly, and he had no chance to avoid it. He sucked in another breath of air and clamped his legs together. If it wasn't for the fact that he couldn't do such a vulgar action in front of so many people, he would have used both hands to check if his family jewels had been broken. Feng Jiu sneered, and her gaze swept between his legs. With a smile that wasn't a smile, she said, "Don't forget that I am the ghost doctor. Do you think that my kick would be so casual?" Hearing this, his expression instantly changed, and his eyes narrowed as he looked at her. "What do you mean? Damn it, that kick hurts so much." "It's exactly what it means." Feng Jiu looked at him playfully. "Your thoughts are impure, and your eyes are filled with evil thoughts. I will break your evil root. I believe it will be very interesting for you." His heart jumped. He didn't know if it was the effect of her words, or if the original kick was as he said, but at this moment, he felt that the most vulnerable part between his legs was faintly numb. His heart couldn't help but sink, and he reached out to attack her. "Then this sovereign will take you back. If I don't get it up, you will also have to suffer." In your dreams. Feng Jiu turned the long sword in her hand, and sword chi shot out again. The green sword chi was like a sharp blade as it attacked the hallmaster. There were only a dozen or so people from the Black Hill Hall. They did not expect that, other than the people from the Heavenly Dan building, there would be so many people guarding the place. They were caught off guard for a moment, especially when they saw that their master was gradually at a disadvantage in the fight with the ghost doctor. In addition, when they thought of the peak stage immortal expert who had been killed by the ghost doctor some time ago, and saw the ruthlessness of these people tonight, the more they fought, the more frightened they became. All of them were injured, and the smell of blood also spread in the air. Bang! Feng Jiu spun and kicked the Black Kill Hall master several meters away. He hit the wall and fell to the ground, spitting out a mouthful of blood. Pooh! He spat out a mouthful of blood and stood up with the help of the wall. Looking at the people coming out again, he gritted his teeth and stared at the dazzling woman in red. "Feng Jiu, just wait and see. Retreat." With a single order, the 10 or so people retreated in a sorry state. Feng Jiu sheathed his Qing Feng sword and watched them leave with narrowed eyes. He did not pursue them. "Ghost Doctor, how are you? Are you hurt?" Hui Lang and Ying brought people quickly to Feng Jiu's side and asked. "I'm fine." Feng Jiu shook his head, looked at them, and said with some surprise, "Why are you here? Didn't I tell you to go to the Hall of Hell to deal with things?" Chapter 2005. Hui Lang looked around and said, "We came back after taking care of the matters at hand. Before Master left, he told us to bring some people over to the manor to protect the Ghost Doctor. We must ensure the Ghost Doctor's safety. We originally wanted to bring people over tomorrow, but we heard the commotion next door, so we came over." Hearing this, Feng Jiu nodded. His gaze swept over the people they had brought over and said, "How about this? These people can be placed in the Ling residence. I also have people guarding the Feng Manor, so there's no need for too many. If there's any movement, we'll be able to hear through the wall." "That's fine." The two nodded. "You bring them back first. Come over to my place later. I have something to say to you." Feng Jiu gave the order and returned to his room. The traces on the ground outside were quickly cleaned up by everyone. After Hui Lang and Ying Yi brought the people back to the Ling residence and settled them down, they came back and saw that the smell of blood had already dissipated. Feng Jiu's courtyard was still lit. The two looked at each other and called out from the courtyard. "Ghost Doctor, we're here. Come in." Lung Shuang opened the door and gestured for the two to enter. Inside the room, Feng Jiu sat at the table and drank tea. Seeing the two enter, he gestured for them to sit. "Sit." The two of them didn't dare to sit down. They just stood there after looking at each other. Ingy didn't say anything and just stood there quietly with his eyes lowered. Grey Wolf smiled and asked, "Ghost Doctor, do you have any orders?" In a few days, I will be going out. When the time comes, you and Lung Shuang will guard these two manors. Wait. Before she could finish speaking, she heard Hui Lang cry out. What? Ghost Doctor, you going out? Where are you going? For how long? You don't plan on bringing us along? If Master finds out, we won't be able to handle the consequences. Ingyi also looked up at Fengjiu and said, Madam, Master has ordered us to protect you. If Madam wants to go out, you don't have to bring Hui Lang, but please bring this subordinate with you. Hearing this, Hui Lang glared at him and said angrily, Why do I have to bring you instead of me? I don't think you're any better than me. Fengjiu's mouth twitched slightly. She glanced at the two of them and coughed softly. I don't plan to bring anyone with me this time. Just guard this place for me. How can that be? Like Ingyi said, if you don't want to take him, at least take me with you. Hui Lang said hurriedly, patting his chest. With me by the Ghost Doctor's side, it'll be safer no matter what. As soon as he said that, even Lung Shuang, who was at the side, glanced sideways at the gray wolf before silently looking away. You're stronger than me? Fengjiu looked calmly at Hui Lang and asked. Hui Lang's face stiffened and he said embarrassedly, That's not true. But I can help you and run errands and scout the way. If we're talking about this, I have plenty of people around me. Fengjiu looked at him with a smile. But with me by the Ghost Doctor's side, you'll be safer. If anything happens, I can also cover for you. Hui Lang tried hard to find something that stood out about him, but no matter how he thought about it, he couldn't find anything that stood out. Chapter 2006. Fengjiu drank a cup of tea and slowly said, I have already arranged this matter. I just wanted to tell you, so that you won't panic when you can't find me. I have already taken care of the matters of the Heavenly Pill building. You just need to take care of the matters your master gave you and the safety of the Feng Manor and Ling Manor. Seeing that she had already decided, Ingyi paused for a moment, then asked, Then where is Madam going? How long will this trip take? Will it be dangerous? They could choose not to go, but they still needed to know. Otherwise, if their master asked about it in the future, wouldn't they not be able to say anything? When I returned, I had people inquire about Han Rong. I recently found out that he will be going to Fire Mountain Forest. My main target this time is him. Fengjiu's voice was cold. She played with the teacup in her hand and slowly said, As long as I take care of him, I will naturally return. Han Rong? Hearing this name, Hui Lang and Ingyi frowned slightly. The two of them looked at each other without batting an eyelid. Of course, they were not unfamiliar with Han Rong. However, the Han Rong who had been possessed was very unfamiliar to them. Last time, the Ghost Doctor had said that she had received news of him outside, but because the location was not suitable, she did not appear to take his life. Later, she wanted to find him, but there was no news. Now that she had news of him, she naturally would not let it go. Speaking of which, it was because of Han Rong that the Phoenix dynasty was destroyed. It was also because of Han Rong that the Ghost Doctor's family experienced a life and death separation. Not only that, even when a master was being pressured by several countries and surrounded by experts, it was all because of Han Rong. This Han Rong was once someone by their master's side, but now he was causing trouble again and again. Their master was not here right now. If he was here, he would definitely personally take care of this matter. Madam, Han Rong is a cunning person. It will not be easy to deal with him. Also, he recognizes you. If you're not careful and are discovered by him, Madam's safety. He looked at her with a bit of worry. He was very clear that Han Rong wanted nothing more than to tear Madam apart. It is because he is not easy to deal with that I have decided to personally make a trip. This time, no matter who goes, I will not be at ease, Fengjiu said slowly and said, This time, I will definitely not let him return alive. Her eyes turned cold. When she thought of that damned Han Rong, a fire burned at her heart. If it wasn't for him, that little Fengjiu wouldn't have died so miserably. Until now, he was still hiding it from his grandmother. Although her grandfather did not say anything, she knew that little Fengjiu's death was a huge blow to him. He was afraid that her grandmother would be worried, so he tried his best to hide the grief in his heart. After explaining some things to them, Fengjiu said, The people tonight are from the Black Hill Hall. The Black Hill Hall master is injured and will not come again in a short period of time. However, you must be vigilant. When I leave, I will leave the Fire Phoenix behind a guard. In addition, I have also told Mo-chan to take care of this place and the Heavenly Pill House. If there is anything that cannot be solved, you can ask him for help. Yes, we understand. They nodded in response. After she finished instructing them on other matters, the two of them left. Back at the Ling residence, Hui Lang scratched his head and looked at Ing. Are we really letting the ghost doctor go alone? She did not even bring the Fire Phoenix. Can she do it? That Han Rong is not easy to deal with. Chapter 2007. All right, Hui Lang gently sighed. That's true. With the ghost doctor's strength, there should be very few people that can hurt her. Moreover, she is as cunning as a fox. Normally, whoever runs into her will suffer. As he said this, he saw Anya look at him strangely. Hui Lang reacted and awkwardly smiled. I was just casually saying it. No matter how cunning the ghost doctor was, it was not something they could discuss. Fortunately, his master was not here. Otherwise, if he had heard it, he would have suffered again. Over the next few days, Fengjiu spent most of her time in the Heavenly Pill building. Because she was about to leave, she refined some pills and medicines to avoid not being able to supply them when the time came. A few days later, she returned to the Feng Manor after taking care of the Heavenly Pill building's matters. When evening came, she changed into a new set of clothes and changed her appearance. She then headed towards the Western City Gate on her own. Of the 4 gates of by River City, the Western Gate led to a mountain path. Normally, there were few pedestrians. After leaving the city, she took out the Aurora transmission scroll. It should be able to restrain the light from the Aurora transmission scroll. She was familiar with using it the previous 2 times. Once she uses it, the light will be too dazzling. It's very likely that it will lead to a fatal disaster. She softly muttered as she held the Aurora transmission scroll and thought. This time, she was not in a rush to use it. Thus, before using it, she thought about it for a while. In the end, she opened the Aurora transmission scroll and whispered in her mind, Fire Mountain Forest. Just as she was about to use it, her body was wrapped in light and became transparent. With a whoosh, she disappeared. This time, she did not fly across the sky, nor did the dazzling light appear. When Fengjiu landed on the ground, she did not fall from the sky like before. Instead, she appeared on the ground and spun around. Her body gradually stabilized. She looked at the pitch-black environment around her and could not help but reveal a smile. So this is the correct way to use the Aurora transmission scroll. It's much more convenient like this. She patted the green clothes on her body and tidied them up. Only then did she walk forward. This was the Fire Mountain Forest? It should be the periphery. After all, according to the information, the trees around the volcano forest were sparse and the temperature was relatively high. It was nighttime here, but through the moonlight above their heads, they could see that the trees were lush and green. When the night wind blew in the forest, they felt cool. It seemed that this should be the periphery of the volcano forest. It was convenient to travel alone. Her footsteps were light as she skimmed through the forest. Her green figure seemed to blend in with the greenery of the forest. In the night, if one did not observe carefully, it would be difficult to tell that the moving figure was a human figure. She tiptoed and walked until she saw the faint light of a fire in front of her. When she heard the sound of people talking, she couldn't help but slow down her pace. She took a deep breath and stood among the branches, looking at the group of people sitting in a circle in the forest. There were both men and women in the group. Some of them looked like mercenaries, while a few of them seemed to be the employers of the mercenaries. More than 20 people were sitting around 2 bonfires, talking to each other. Chapter 2008. Eldest senior brother, Master asked us to look for the Fires Park stone. However, my father said that it's extremely rare and will only appear when the volcano erupts. Although we have hired mercenaries to escort us, I still feel that this trip will be dangerous. I'm worried that we won't be able to leave once we enter, one of the women said softly with a worried expression. Among the few people, the older man said warmly, "Don't worry. Just treat this as an experience. It's not our first time going out for an experience, so don't think too much." Hearing that, another woman said, "But why didn't Master come with us to such a dangerous place? If there's any accident, then?" The few of them fell silent for a moment. Their master had ordered them to go down the mountain to look for a material called the Firespark Stone in the volcano forest. Other than giving them some self-defense items, there was no elder to lead them. It was because of this that they hired a group of mercenaries to travel with them after some discussion. The mercenaries smiled and said, "Everyone, don't worry too much. We're still in the periphery of the volcano forest. Even if there's any danger, it'll be after we enter the inner circle. However, if you feel that it's dangerous, you can come out after a trip to the inner circle. You don't have to wait for the volcano eruption that happens once every 3 months. Moreover, there might be some Firespark stones in the inner circle. After all, no one can say that they've collected all the Firespark stones every time the volcano erupts. Don't you think so?" Hearing the words from below, Fengjiu's eyes flickered and an idea formed in her mind. If she entered the forest alone, she would have to find the way. Moreover, if she really met Han Rong, she might as well mix in with the other groups. This way, even if he was on guard, he wouldn't think that she would join another group. With this thought, she started to think about the people below. The 6 young men and women looked like they were from a sect. If she wanted to mix in with them, it shouldn't be difficult. Her eyes flickered and her mind spun quickly. She was prepared to think of a way to travel with these people. However, what method should she use? A thought flashed through her mind, and a smile bloomed on her lips. She looked at the people below with an inexplicable smile. As the sky gradually brightened, those people gradually extinguished the fire and continued on their way. Behind them, Fengjiu followed unhurriedly, waiting for the right time. After following them for 2 days in the forest and entering the inner region, she finally got the opportunity she had been waiting for. "Oh, so your family has come out to experience. Since we are all going to the volcano, why don't we travel together?" Seeing that there were 30 to 40 people on the other side, and that there were elders leading the group who were stronger than them, they wanted to team up with them. At least the journey would be safer. Seeing that they were disciples of one of the 4 great sects, the Nebula Immortal sect, the clan member also had the intention to befriend them. That's good too. No matter what, it's relatively safer to travel together. Chapter 2009. Thus, the 2 groups of people sat together and rested. Some of them went to the nearby water source to get some water. A green figure naturally blended in with them. "Is the water ready? I hunted a wild boar. Let's go back and roast it." Fengjiu was dragging a wild boar that weighed about 100 jin as she spoke to the group of people who were filling the water. The group of people looked at the young man and saw that he had a simple and honest smile on his face. The young man didn't have a strong physique, but he was still dragging a wild boar. They stepped forward and said, "Come, let me help. We've already filled the water." "Brother, how did you hunt such a big wild boar?" "I can't accept big brother calling me brother. You could just call me Xiaojiu." She grinned and scratched her head with a simple and honest smile. "I was just lucky. This wild boar was already injured when it was caught. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to catch it so easily." "Xiaojiu? That's easy to remember," the man said with a smile as he picked up the wild boar that Fengjiu had placed on the ground. "Big brother, how should I address you?" she asked with a smile as she looked at the young man with a strong physique. "My surname is Chai. I'm a side-branch disciple of the Chai family. I came out to train this time. You can just call me Big Brother Chai," the young man said as he turned to Fengjiu and said, "Let's go back. We're already in the inner area. Next time, don't go too far to hunt for wild animals. It'll be dangerous." Hearing this, Fengjiu smiled and narrowed her eyes. "Thank you, Big Brother Chai, for reminding me. I'll remember it." She followed beside him and laughed as they walked back. When the group of people who were resting saw that they had returned with a wild boar, they couldn't help but be surprised. The middle-aged man who was leading the group from the Chai family looked at the young man and asked, "Where did you get this wild boar?" Wild boars were very rare in this area. They hadn't seen a single one along the way. I didn't hunt it. It was Xiaojio. As the young man spoke, he patted Fengjiu's shoulder and said to the middle-aged man, "Second uncle, let's prepare the wild boar and roast it. You can rest for a while." The middle-aged man glanced at the honest-looking young man in green before revealing a smile. "All right, then you can go." He gestured to the young man and woman before him. However, at this moment, Fengjiu walked over and smiled at one of the men. "Brother Fan, can you come with me to pick up some branches?" The young man who was called was startled. He looked at the simple and honest youth in green and said, "Sure." He stood up and smiled at the others. Then, he walked with Fengjiu into the forest. "You're Xiaojio?" Fan Ishio tilted his head and looked at Fengjiu. "Yes. Big brother Fan, just call me Xiaojio." She smiled and squinted her eyes as she picked up some dry branches in the forest. When she saw that there were dry branches on the trees, she would jump up and break them off. As the two chatted, they picked up some branches and walked back. When they reached the resting area, Fengjiu took the branches from the young man's hands and said, "Brother Fan, you should rest first. I'll bring the meat to you when it's done." As she spoke, she carried the branches and walked to the area where the wild boar was being roasted. Fan Ishio was startled. Seeing the young man's friendly tone and manner of speaking, he was a little stunned. He felt that something was strange, but he couldn't put his finger on it. Chapter 2010. Thank you. Fan Ishio took a sip and looked at the green-robed young man, who was busy roasting the meat. The second master of the Chai family, who was sitting opposite him, followed his gaze and looked at the green-robed young man. He smiled and said, "Xiaojio's character is quite likable. He's honest and honest." "That's right." Fan Ishio smiled and nodded. After he looked away, he started to talk about the Fire's Park Stone with the second master of the Chai family. On the other side, Fengjiu was roasting the meat on behalf of the Chai family, and she quickly got along well with them. She called them big brother and sister, which made them very happy, so they took extra care of her. "The roasted meat is here. Come and try it. It's freshly roasted, and it tastes really good." Fengjiu brought them some roasted meat, then ran back to the roasted pig to help. For a moment, the forest was filled with the rich aroma of roasted meat, as well as the laughter of the crowd. After eating the roasted meat, the second master of the Chai family said, "It's time to go. We can't stay here for too long." "All right." Fan Ishio nodded and said something to the crowd. He then followed the Chai family's team into the forest. Fengjiu, who was in the team, was next to the young man. The two of them talked and laughed along the way. They weren't at the back of the team, nor were they at the front. Instead, they were walking in the middle. Suddenly, the team in front of them stopped. The second master of the Chai family made a gesture, and the crowd surrounded them vigilantly. At the same time, they put their hands on their weapons and were ready to attack at any time. Fan Ishio and the rest also looked around cautiously. They were protected by the mercenaries, but even so, they didn't dare to relax until they heard loud laughter. "Ha ha ha ha!" Along with the laughter, many men wearing mercenary uniforms rushed out from the surrounding forest. All of them had abilities at the fairy realm, and their murderous auras and killing intent were very obvious. This caused the crowd to feel uneasy. The mercenaries who were protecting Fan Ishio and the rest recognized them. They couldn't help but gasp. It's the Scorpion mercenary group. Their faces were pale, and fear could be seen in their eyes. There wasn't a single mercenary who didn't know of the Scorpion mercenary group's ferocious reputation. These people specialized in plundering and didn't reject anyone who came. Most of the men were killed, and their belongings were robbed. The fate of the women was even worse. Those with ordinary looks were killed after they played with them. If they encountered those with good looks, they would imprison those women and turn them into playthings after they played with them. Their methods were so ruthless that it made people tremble in fear. What Scorpion mercenary group? A few girls from a Nebula mortal sect did not know the inside story and could not help but ask softly. However, the mercenaries who were protecting them pursed their lips. Their expressions were ugly and they couldn't say a word. Fan Ishio had heard of the Scorpion mercenary group before. When he saw the red scorpion tattoos on their faces, his heart sank. He lowered his voice and said to the people beside him, "Later, when the situation doesn't look good, you guys should leave first. Run out of the volcano forest and don't stay." The other two men from the sect saw that the mercenaries who were protecting them didn't look right. Even the older members of the Chai family didn't look right. Their hearts sank. Chapter 2011. The people from the Chai family looked at the people who had appeared. There were 50 to 60 people in the Scorpion mercenary group, and most of them were at the fairy realm. They were mercenaries who specialized in looting, and their methods were ferocious. Their combat power was shocking. If they fought, they would suffer heavy casualties. Most importantly, the Scorpion mercenary group was even more cruel to women. Many of the younger generations of the Chai family were accompanying them on this trip. If they fell into their hands, they would suffer a fate worse than death. He thought for a moment, then walked forward and cupped his hands. "Sir, we don't mean to offend you. If you let us leave safely, we are willing to leave some of our belongings behind." Hearing this, the people in the Scorpion mercenary group raised their heads and laughed out loud. "Leave some belongings behind? Ha ha ha. Old thing, are you muddle-headed? We don't want all of your belongings and those delicate beauties, and we let you leave? Just for some of your belongings? Ha ha. If that's the case, how can the Scorpion mercenary group survive in this volcanic forest?" Fengjiu, who was also protected in the middle, looked at the situation in front of her. She also saw that the second Master Chai was trying to make peace and seek a chance of survival. Her gaze shifted, and she quietly tugged at the young man beside her, who looked vigilant and worried. "Xiaojiu, are you afraid?" Chai Feng glanced at the young man beside him and said in a low voice, "When the time comes, just watch. If you really can't defeat them, leave with your senior sisters first." Hearing this, Fengjiu smiled and tugged at him, indicating for him to lower his head. Chai Feng glanced ahead and saw that the second master was discussing with those people. He lowered his head and leaned closer to the young man. "What's the matter? Tell me." "Brother Chai, do you think we have a chance of winning if we fight?" Fengjiu asked. Chai Feng shook his head solemnly. "No chance. If we fight, I'm afraid we will suffer heavy casualties. The other party is a mercenary group with combat experience, and most of our people have just come out to train. If we really fight, I'm afraid. I have an idea. Are you willing to do as I say?" She whispered. Seeing his doubtful gaze, she added, "Maybe my method can save everyone's lives." Hearing this, Chai Feng's eyes lit up. There was determination in his eyes. "Tell me, as long as I can save everyone, even if I have to sacrifice my life, I will not hesitate." Fengjiu smiled and whispered in his ear. He handed him another bag and looked at him quietly. "Success or failure depends on you." Although Chai Feng had his doubts and did not know if this plan would work, he really did not have any other ideas at the moment. Moreover, he could tell that the other party would not let them off so easily. He nodded at Fengjiu, took a deep breath, and clenched the thing in his hand tightly. Right at this moment, the leader of the Scorpion mercenaries laughed arrogantly. "Kill the man, capture the woman, and bring her back to reward our brothers." "Yes. Ha ha." The people behind the Scorpion mercenaries replied loudly. Looking at the beautiful women who were protected in the middle, they laughed excitedly, and their voices contained undisguised impatience. Chapter 2012. Out of a voice filled with panic and fear suddenly rang out. A young man suddenly rushed out from the group. With a frightened look on his face, he waved his hands and jumped up and down as he screamed in shock. "No, no, I don't want to die. I don't want to die. No, no. I want to go home. I want to go home. Woo, I don't want to go out to train. I don't want to go out to train. I want to go home, mother. I want to go home to mother." The sudden cry not only stunned the people from the Scorpion mercenary group, but also stunned the people who had turned pale when they heard that the Scorpion mercenary group was going to kill and kidnap the young man. The second master of the Chai family did not react for a long time when he saw the young man frightened to this extent. The women from the Chai family and the Nebula Immortal sect turned pale when they heard that they were going to kidnap them to reward the mercenaries. They almost lost their footing. When they saw that the young man was also frightened to this extent, they gritted their teeth and thought that if they could not escape in the end, they would commit suicide. Even if they died, it would be better than falling into the hands of those cruel people and being defiled by them. The people from the Scorpion mercenary group could not help but laugh when they saw the young man crying and screaming. He even took off his clothes and flung them around like a lunatic. "Ha ha! Big brother, look, we haven't even made a move yet, but this young man is already scared to death. It seems that our fame has spread far and wide." Ha! A mercenary from the Scorpion mercenary group laughed complacently. He was not in a hurry to make a move. Instead, he held a saber on his shoulder with one hand and placed the other on his waist. He stood there with his feet splayed out and looked at the young man who was crying for his parents. Seeing that a young man was frightened to this extent by them, they felt a sense of accomplishment in their hearts. In the future, as long as they showed up, those people would be scared witless when they recognized them as members of the Scorpion mercenary group. When the second master of the Chai family saw that the young man from his family was so easily frightened, his face turned ashen as he shouted, "Chai Feng, come back." "No, no, I don't want to die. I don't want to die." Chai Feng muttered and shouted as he ran in front of the group. When second master Chai saw this, his face turned pale. "Bring him back." Two middle-aged men from the Chai family stepped forward and tried to grab Chai Feng. However, Chai Feng resisted fiercely. He kept running and jumping around. Don't catch me. I want to go home. I want to go home." Fengjiu, who was standing in the middle, looked at the scene in front of him with his mouth slightly agape. His face was filled with disbelief and shock. Who would have thought? This Chai Feng was really good at acting crazy. He really looked like he was scared out of his wits, which was out of her expectations. Chai Feng ran a circle around the crowd, but his body and clothes were leaning towards the Scorpion mercenaries. After running a circle, he was dragged back by two middle-aged men from the Chai family. Let me go, let me go." He struggled, but to no avail. Seeing this, the Scorpion mercenaries coldly snorted and glanced at the women whose faces had turned pale. The leader's lips curled into a lecherous smile as he waved his hand. "Attack!" Chapter 2013. Whether it was the people from the Chai family, the people from the Nebula Immortal sect, or the accompanying mercenaries, they all attacked the people from the Scorpion mercenary group in an instant. At the same time, Fan Ishio from the Nebula Immortal sect shouted to the three junior sisters behind him, "Follow the people from the Chai family and leave first." Eldest senior brother, although the three of them were experienced, they had never experienced such a situation where they would fight over a disagreement. At this time, the three of them were so frightened that they were at a loss. They could only retreat with the people from the Chai family. However, the people from the Scorpion mercenary group had surrounded them. Even if they wanted to escape, there was nowhere for them to go. Fengjiu also helped. She calculated the time. From the moment those people inhaled the medicine to the moment they activated the spiritual aura in their bodies, the medicine should have taken effect soon. Sure enough, just as the situation became more dangerous, some of the people from the Scorpion mercenary group staggered. Although they tried their best to hide their shock, their subtle expressions could not escape the eyes of Fengjiu, who had been observing them all this time. At this time, some of the people from the Chai family also felt uncomfortable after inhaling a small amount of medicine. Some of them staggered a few steps before they were supported by the people beside them. Some of them retreated to the side of a tree and leaned against it to catch their breath. "Retreat!" Suddenly, the leader of the Scorpion mercenary group shouted and ordered his mercenaries to retreat quickly. The members of the Scorpion mercenary group also retreated quickly after receiving the order because they also felt that something was wrong with their bodies. However, in front of the people opposite them, they forced themselves to endure and did not show it. The people on the other side were even more surprised. They did not know what the Scorpion mercenary group was up to. After taking a deep breath, Second Master Chai stared at the people from the Scorpion mercenary group. He could tell that something was wrong with them. but he was puzzled and did not know the reason. Leave half of your belongings. We will let you live. The leader of the Scorpion mercenary group said in a gloomy voice. When he said this, the people from the Chai family and the people from the Nebula Immortal sect were all shocked. What trick are you up to now? Second Master Chai frowned. He did not believe that they would suddenly be so kind as to let them go. Humph. It's just that we don't want to kill today. We want to let you live. Why? Do you not want to live anymore? The leader of the Scorpion mercenaries said in a gloomy voice. However, if one listened carefully, one could still hear the unwillingness and killing intent in his voice. Second uncle, you can't listen to them. They're drugged. Kill them. At this moment, Chai Feng, who was being held at the back, shouted loudly. He struggled and said to the two people beside him, "Let me go. I didn't go crazy from fear. I just drugged them." Hearing this, the people from the Chai family were shocked. Before they could react, they heard the people from the Scorpion mercenaries roaring angrily. "Damn bastard! How dare you play dirty tricks on us?" Their curses were filled with undisguised anger and killing intent. Just now, they had been suspicious, but now that they heard this brat say it, it made them even angrier. It turned out that the reason why they were gradually losing their spiritual power was because of this brat's dirty tricks. Chapter 2014. He felt that their fighting strength was becoming weaker as they progressed. He also noticed that some of their footsteps were faltering. So, it was because they were drugged? Yes, I drugged them just now. They inhaled a colorless and odorless drug, so their fighting strength has been drained. Second uncle, let's kill them now and get rid of a big threat. Otherwise, we'll definitely die if they recover. As he spoke, Chai Feng had already struggled to free himself and rushed forward with his long sword. He was not drugged, and his skills were not bad. At this moment, he killed one of the members of the Scorpion mercenary group at a speed that left no time for anyone to cover their ears. Hiss! A blood-curdling scream suddenly rang out. The blood that splashed out and the sharp and mournful scream instantly brought everyone back to their senses. Seeing this scene, the Chai family's second master was excited and immediately shouted, "Kill them! Get rid of a threat in the volcano forest." As soon as he finished speaking, he took the lead and rushed forward, waving his sword and slashing at the pale-faced Scorpion mercenaries. Just a moment ago, they were all excited and ready to harvest the other party's lives. Now, the tables had turned. The reversal of the situation at the critical moment of life and death made everyone excited and exhilarated. At this moment, they had no fear, only murderous intent. They only wanted to kill the Scorpion mercenaries in front of them. Only by killing them would they be able to survive safely. Fengjiu's lips curved slightly as he watched this scene. A faint light flashed in his eyes as he watched the massacre in front of him. The sound of swords clashing, the sound of blood splashing, and the mournful screams and exclamations mixed together in the forest. In front of her and around her, only the shadows of swords and sabers could be seen flashing past. The Chai family and the Nebula Immortal sect, who had reversed the situation, were in control of life and death. They harvested the lives of the Scorpion mercenaries, killing them one by one until no one was left alive. When the members of the Scorpion mercenary group were killed one by one on the spot, and when they saw the ground covered in blood and corpses, the people who were standing with their swords and sabers pointed at the ground dripping with blood finally came back to their senses in a daze. They're all dead. Yes, the Scorpion mercenaries are all dead. The Scorpion mercenaries are all dead. We actually killed them? We actually killed them. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. We're actually still alive. One by one. The people standing with swords and sabers in their hands murmured. A moment ago, they were facing death, but in the next moment, the situation was reversed, and all of this. Suddenly, everyone's eyes fell on Chai Feng. Chai Feng, who was standing in a daze, looked at the green figure with disbelief, shock, and astonishment in his eyes. He didn't expect it to succeed. He did not expect that the situation would turn around just as he had said. He also did not expect that they would still be alive in the end, while the ones who died were the people from the Scorpion mercenaries. At this moment, no one knew how much shock and astonishment he had in his heart. Just one plan, just one pack of medicine, and it was actually able to wipe out this brutal mercenary group that was tyrannical in this fire forest. Chapter 2015. A phone, come over here. What's going on? Tell us. Second Master Chai came back to his senses and suppressed the shock in his heart as he shouted at Chai Feng, who was standing there in a daze. At this moment, even Fan Ishio and the others were looking at this ordinary-looking young man. He was actually the one who had turned the situation around and saved everyone's lives? Ah Feng, you scared me to death. I thought you were really scared out of your wits. I didn't expect that this was just your plan. How did you come up with this idea? How did you get your hands on such a powerful medicine? Those people were all cultivators at the fairy realm, but none of them were able to resist at all. Brother Ah Feng, you're too amazing. Brother Ah Feng, we're lucky to have you. Otherwise, we would have been in deep trouble. Surprised and excited voices rang out and finally pulled Chai Feng back to his senses. He glanced at Fengjiu, then retracted his gaze and came to his second uncle's side. Second uncle, I didn't come up with this idea, and the medicine wasn't mine. The one who saved everyone wasn't me, but Xiao Jiao. Chai Feng pointed at the young man who was wiping his dagger. It was Xiao Jiao who came up with this idea. It was Xiao Jiao who gave me that bag of medicine. If it wasn't for him, I don't think we would have survived. It was Xiao Jiao. Everyone looked at the calm and honest young man in shock. This young man was so ordinary looking. So how could he? Seeing that everyone was looking at him, Fengjiu, who was wiping his dagger, flashed a simple and honest smile at the crowd. He then lowered his head and continued wiping his dagger. Yes, it was Xiao Jiao. He gave us the medicine, and he came up with the idea. Chai Feng emphasized again. Chai Feng emphasized again. He looked at his second uncle and said, Little Nine said that he will help everyone get through this crisis, but the things on those mercenaries will belong to him. Hearing this, everyone was stunned again, and their gazes fell on the young man in green. All the things would belong to him? Then they wouldn't have anything? However, thinking deeper, if it wasn't for his idea and the medicine he took out, they might have lost their lives by now, let alone their belongings. Thinking about it carefully, it wasn't too much for him to make such a request. At least, he only asked for the belongings of the Scorpion mercenaries, not their belongings. Their lives had been saved by him. Even if they knew that the Scorpion mercenaries had a lot of belongings, they wouldn't be greedy. After all, he was so young, but so cunning and had such a powerful medicine. Second Master Chai nodded. I think so too. As he said that, he ordered a few people to collect the space rings and Chinquan pouches from the Scorpion mercenaries. They were stacked into two small piles, along with the weapons in their hands. Xiao Jiao, thank you for saving us with your plan. You deserve all of this, Second Master Chai said as he gestured for him to collect all the belongings. Chapter 2016. She took the spatial rings and universal bags, as well as the jade ornaments on the waists of the Scorpion mercenaries. As for the weapons, she said to the family's master, I have no use for these weapons, so you can keep them for yourselves. Perhaps they will come in handy in the future. How can you do that? These are all your. Before the second Master Chai could finish his words, he was interrupted by Fengjiu. I have no use for them, as I can't use so many of them. She smiled and looked at Chai Feng. She then took out a spatial ring from her space and handed it to him. Brother Chai, this is for you. No, how can I take them? It's already not easy for us to survive, so you should keep them. I can't take them. Chai Feng waved his hand and stepped back. He didn't want to take them. Even though Fengjiu repeatedly asked him to take them, he still insisted on not taking them. In the end, Fengjiu had no choice but to take them. Fine. If you don't want them, I will keep them for myself. When we return to the city, I will sell them for money. She smiled as she spoke. The second Master Chai ordered everyone to take one of the weapons and keep it with them. As he looked at the corpses and the blood on the ground, he said, We can't stay here for long. We must leave immediately and find a clean place to rest. Okay. Thus, everyone quickly left. After they left the bloody area, they found a place without the smell of blood and sat down to rest. Xiaojiu, do you still have that medicine? The second master Chai asked. He wondered what kind of medicine it was. If it could poison even a fairy realm expert, then it couldn't have been refined by an ordinary person. No, she said as she spread out her hands. Then, where did you get that medicine? The second master Chai asked again. He thought that if he knew where she had bought it, he could go there and buy some to protect himself. 100 Rivers City's Heavenly Elixir Building, Fengjiu said with a smile. 100 Rivers City's Heavenly Elixir Building. Second Master Chai looked at him in surprise. He then looked at the other members of the Chai family and said to Fengjiu, we have never heard of the Heavenly Elixir Building. Fan Yixio and the others who were sitting at the side did not say anything. They were deep in thought. Among them, Fan Yixio was the strangest. He looked at Fengjiu and asked, is it 100 Rivers City? I didn't say that there was a Heavenly Dan building in 100 Rivers City. A female disciple replied, eldest senior brother's home is in 100 River City. Fengjiu's eyes flashed. Fan Yixio's home was in 100 River City? There didn't seem to be many people with the surname Fan in 100 River City. A figure flashed through his mind, but it was gone in a flash. This Heavenly Elixir Building is newly opened. It specializes in selling elixirs, medicines, medicinal powders, and other commonly used things. These things are just like the medicine I took out today. They're good and top grade. However, they are also very expensive. Moreover, some things can't be bought with money. Oh, money can't buy it? Then, how can it be bought? Someone asked as he looked at Fengjiu in surprise. Medicinal ingredients. Moreover, they have aged medicinal ingredients. They buy at least 500 years old spiritual ingredients. This news has already spread in the Heavenly Elixir Building. Many people have asked for them because of their reputation. I only managed to get this medicine by chance. That you're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.